Welcome to another Grit and Grind basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sagoe. Should probably start the pod by staring at the screen. I am with here we go. Thomas Arnal.
So close, yet so far. No, it's the other way around.
Hi. Michael Downey.
All right.
Yep, got it. And that means that Jose is there. Wait, how can you be there?
I'm here.
Below.
I don't know. He's below me.
Below me.
I don't know where Mike is. All right.
Hi,
So
everyone.
below you should be that way to me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Jose Garcia Vidal.
I think we spend way too much time on this.
It's fun though, ain't it? Especially for the audio listeners.
Yeah.
All right. So we're back with another episode. Obviously now the playoffs are going and I'm just watching basketball 24/7.
Yeah,
All of
we're
a
in it.
sudden I can't get enough. When I had 11 games every night, I was like, oh, it's too much. I don't like it. Now there's only like 4 games at most on the weekend and 2 during the weekdays. I'm trying to watch everything. All of it.
Every
everything.
second.
Put it in my veins. I did manage to watch every single game 1, and then they broke us off with 2 game 2s. We're gonna be breaking down each series and saying where the losing teams for the most part, because in most of the series, thank you, Mike. Most of the series, there's only been one winner, save for the Denver Nuggets, Portland Trailblazers series. So we'll be saying what they can do, what adjustments they can make. All right. If we were on the coaching staff, what have we seen that they can exploit? Or what have we seen that they haven't exploited yet? And then, and going through series by series and doing that. We wanted to start off with a couple of series that we think are over. Just go home. Just go home. It's done,
Get
man.
the brooms out.
Put a fork in them. It's done. We got the Washington Wizards against the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
Valiant in
Yeah.
a losing effort, but
Sure.
I mean, come on, what can they really do? I do think they could push the pace a little, just to up the variance and make things a bit more unpredictable, I guess. But then, I mean, they're running into a buzzsaw either way, whether Embiid's on the floor, off the floor, whether he's home, whether he's sitting on their laps, whether he's sitting on the bench. It doesn't matter where he is, really. They're still toast. Tobias Harris slayed them.
Yep.
And the Boston Celtics. It pains me to say it. It really does. You know how I feel about the green.
Sure.
It's true.
Sure.
It's true. They're done.
An amazing performance by Robert Williams, the third,
Yeah.
the Time Lord, as they
Was it
call him.
9 blocks?
9 blocks. I mean, he played decent number of minutes. He actually has an injury as well. He has turf toe, so he's getting shots. I don't think he played more than like 25 minutes. I don't think he can play more than 25 minutes. He was impactful, but it wasn't enough. He played a great game, great first half. Marcus Smart was excellent in the first half, knocking down shots. It wasn't enough. Second half, Kyrie got going. It was over, man. There's just too much shot creating.
And I feel like the Nets have still got another gear as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
the worst thing.
Harden wasn't that great.
Yeah.
He had his moments, but he wasn't that great. He doesn't even look that great in general, just being back from his injury. But man, they went to Durant a few times and that game was over. Tristan Thompson tried to post him up. He swatted that ball back to the 3-point line, went up the other end and hit a 3 himself. It's over, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. But next year when Jaylen Brown's healthy and, got a whole off season to tinker with the team, who knows?
We've been saying the same thing about the Celtics for a couple of years now.
But they've been successful. Like if you actually look at where they finished in the playoffs, they've made like a few conference finals and
they're just always missing that extra bit, don't they? Like it's a bit frustrating also, a team that has so much history and has the material, the potential to make it, but they're just missing that one extra bit.
Yep.
A mid-series trade away.
Mid-series.
They came out of there. Somebody.
Go and they should be able to choose from players that didn't make it. They should be able to like trade them for Steph or Draymond or both.
Yeah.
So sorry to the fans of those teams. We've got nothing for you. But we'll start at the top. First series we have written down is Utah versus Memphis. Wow, that's one for the casual fan out there. Two huge teams. I guess we kind of start with the biggest guy on the court, which is Rudy Gobert, in foul trouble in game one, eventually fouling out in the fourth quarter, and Memphis was able to pull the upset. We said when we were doing our brackets that Memphis attacks the rim a lot, and Utah, obviously, in Gobert, the defensive player of the year, incumbent defensive player of the year again. That's going to be a problem. Turned out it wasn't that big of a problem because when Gobert was drawn out, well, he missed a lot of time with fouls, but part of that was because either Valanciunas was getting fouls on him or he was being pulled out of position by the drives, and then they were just either dumping it into Valanciunas or Valanciunas was getting it off the offensive rebounds. So it was this dynamic where he was protecting the paint on his own against an attacker and Valanciunas, who's one of the better offensive rebounders in the league and definitely one of the best inside finishers.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, many things to analyze in this game. I think when I watched the highlights, I noticed the Jazz, just the defense was just kind of like too cocky, too like, we already got this in the bag, like, don't worry. Obviously, Ja Morant is going to bring, some points, which he did, and he played extremely well. But like the Grizzlies played, with good scoring, like even from like Grayson Allen, Brooks, Valanciunas, as we said, Jones. They were all like, playing like their lives out there, and the Jazz was just like, it's okay, they're up, but we'll come back, right? And they ended up shooting 6 for 31 in 3-pointers by the third quarter, and at the end finished with 25% in 3-point shots. Like, that's terrible. Bogdanov is just the only thing that could, like, that I can say, like, wow, okay, he got on roll on the fourth. But besides that, I think that they just played like, you need to be more serious. It doesn't matter who you're facing. This is the playoffs, and these kids, they brought it, and they played. They played well against the number one team in the NBA. That's what they want.
I think the Jazz had been training for the Warriors the whole time. I think Memphis caught them off guard by winning that one. But I mean, like, I thought a similar thing. It was almost like it was almost like a regular season game for them. Like it was almost like they didn't have like a specific plan for Memphis. We'd seen sort of from Golden State, like the last regular season game, like a good way to guard Ja Morant is to back off him. If he wants to like start shooting threes, cool, go for that. And they've not done that as aggressively. So it'll be interesting to see if they do change that up. But ultimately, I don't think they have that bad of a shooting night again. We've got to see if Mitchell's going to come back, because he's clearly sort of missing from that offense. He changes that like entirely if he gets back for game two.
Yeah, I think that the Jazz are not going to shoot as bad. There's no way. and the game ended. What was it? A 3-point difference, right?
Mhm.
So the Jazz only needs to score basically 2 more 3-pointers to win this game, and Memphis played their best game ever. So we were talking earlier that the other 2 series are over. This series is over too, and the Jazz is going to win. But it was just fun to have these guys checked, like, oh, there you go. Oh, you need to be serious now,
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoy, and I massive future for this Memphis team.
Yeah, but I
Many
think
thoughts?
to me it's a combination of two things. Is that the Mitchell not being there, even though he came out today saying that he was ready to play, but it's just the doctors, team doctor was just went, nah, you can't. So he's playing game 2, like regardless what's happening. I think combine that with literally what we said in the last episode, which was be careful of teams that are coming off that in rhythm that just played a bunch of games back to back. They may be more tired because of obviously playing games, but like when you're in that rhythm and you play a team that has just been training in training mode for the last week, maybe 10 days, maybe not that much, but like last few days, there's a huge difference in intensity and how you approach a game and how you get into that series. But then I'm with Jose on that one. I think it's just a one-off, and then Mitchell being back, and they'll adjust and they'll just make the changes they have to, the Jazz.
But Memphis are like, they have impressed me up to now. Like,
but they had to play the best game of the season to get a 3-point win against the Jazz, who played badly.
Yeah.
So again, they can get them another one, but I agree. They're being good.
Yeah, but Jared Jackson is like a real deal. Dylan Brooks too. Like, he can do it on both ends. Like, did not see a 30-point game coming out of him for that one. So
Brooks is awesome.
It's interesting you mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. because he actually hasn't played that well since he came back from injury. So I think that's actually an area where they can still continue to improve. Like, he was 1 for 5 on threes, 2 for 8 from the field, and he had a bunch of fouls as well. He was actually minus 19. Right, and no other starter was less than +6. So that's another area that they could actually clean up and do better in, and maybe pull things out that way. It was interesting to me that Memphis went to a lineup at some point in the second half where they had their entire bench and Valanciunas out there, and then they did the opposite. They dropped Valanciunas and then went to a lineup with the entire starting lineup, and I think it was Tillman out there. And both of those lineups did pretty well because the Utah bench wasn't that great at all in this game. And then they were basically able to tread water by having Valanciunas down low. And they were able to, scrub together enough offense with the likes of Bane and Tyus Jones and Melton and those guys out there to keep things under control. And I think it will be interesting to see how Quinn Snyder plays his bench. Obviously, with Mitchell coming back, that's going to help a ton because you then have another player who could potentially play offense with the bench or obviously play with the starters and then have maybe a Joe Ingles play more minutes with the bench and balance things out that way, or a Conley play more minutes with the bench and balance things out like that. It was just interesting. I think Memphis are more of a threat than you guys do. Do I see them winning this series? Maybe not, but I still think there's scope for like Mitchell to come back and be rusty. I know he's ready to go physically, but he's been out for a while. So yeah, I think they could get another game. I think having won the first one.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying
probably
that.
at home.
It can go in 6. I think you can easily picture that, but I think eventually the Jazz would just be too much to handle.
Yeah. So I think is that everything we had? Yeah, and then obviously the Jazz can just be a bit more selective in how they defend people. With Triple J not hitting his shots, they can maybe help off him so that they don't expose Gobert so much on the inside and allow him to stay home on Valanciunas a little bit more. Mike already said Sagoe, Ja, and some of the other less reliable shooters on the Memphis team. And they should be able to like tinker just enough to pull this one out without having to go crazy out there. Hopefully Bogdanovic scores in the first half this time.
Right.
He had 29 in the second half. He did a Tatum.
Yeah.
So next up on the list, which is just in a random order, Clippers, Dallas.
Yeah.
It's the one, huh?
Do you want to kick things off, Tom? You want to introduce this one?
I don't know if I want to. I think I might get too cocky, so I don't know if you want to go.
Go ahead. Enlighten us.
It's all a blur, really, that game. Because I was just, when you have a good taste of a nice L for the other team in LA. And then Luka, basically you could, it's a very basic summary, but Luka did what Luka does, which is pace and make some crazy shots and did pretty much everything around, everything that needed to be done on the offense. I think my biggest takeaway is I saw Porzingis making a basket, like actually making it too close to the basket. That's something that was surprising to me. Like he actually
using his height.
Yeah.
Literally, when that happened, you're like, they're not going to lose. They can't lose this. Like, he's actually in the paint.
Right.
I think Rick Carlisle had a word with him.
had a word with him. It's like, dude, do you remember how tall you are? Do you see that thing there? That's a paint. Go in it. But no, I think you want to sort of concentrate on the Clippers and I don't know, man. Like it was. To me, it was weird. Like I couldn't really analyze the game. I was just watching the Clippers.
Luka wins.
Part of me was like, yeah, that was that. Luka wins whatever you guys do. But I don't know. It was just weird because they had the intensity to start with. They were in the game, so it's not like they went in this thinking they'll just put a little bit of effort and they'll come away with the win. But it wasn't that at all. So that's what for me. It was really hard to analyze why they lost that one. I with all the banters going around with them choking and doing Clippers things. I don't know. It was just weird. To me, the biggest takeaway was why did they not put Kawhi or PG-13 on Luka? Like when you see him going off like that, it's like why are you waiting for just to make that adjustment? Maybe that wasn't in the game plan before the game. That's fine, but like clearly you've got enough assistant to tell you like, look, you gotta put one of the two on him.
These all NBA defensive players.
Yeah,
maybe chuck them on that guy that's scoring all the time.
the one guy who's clearly the biggest threat on the other team. Like maybe throw one of your two best defenders in the league. Like just maybe try that. And I think that's what's going to happen in game 2. So that's an adjustment we'll see. But I don't know. It's for me, it was a weird one. Like I was watching the game, I was like, how did they throw that one away? Like they clearly could easily. And again, I'm sorry, Luka, I love you, but like they could easily win this one. They could just concentrate a little bit. But it's just, and they should, but to me, I cannot analyze this game like there's nothing coherent. I can say that I'm like, what happened? Like, it's literally I ended the game, I was like, what the hell just happened? Like what was that about? So that's what I'm saying. Like, what do you guys think about it? Because I'm still to this day, I've rewatched the highlights after that and I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean from my perspective, like Luka is, it's so clearly the key for Dallas. Like if you can stop, slow down, or do something with Luka, then you're giving yourself a very good chance to beat them. And what I see that he likes to do is he likes to go at his defenders, get them off balance, create chaos in the defense and then either score or make a pass to an open man.
Yeah.
So the way that I would do it, you put one of your best defenders of him, obviously. But then I back off him because he's not a great 3-point shooter if he's just standing still and then just going to launch it. I don't think that's like how you get the best out of him. So try and give him that. Stay off him and don't let him sort of come into the paint and create chaos like that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think
it gives you a better chance at the passing lanes as well. So.
Absolutely. The thing with Luka, I think Luka is one of those players that means so much to his team, right? Like we have a couple in these playoffs. We have Jokic, we have Lillard, we have Trae Young. Just to name a few. Then you have other teams, that don't depend as much on one single player, like we just spoke about Utah, right? But the thing about Luka is, I mean, first of all, again, I 100% agree with you. Why not defend him with one of your top defenders? Like league's top defenders, defend one of the top offensive players. Absolutely. Just bother him. Don't let him play the way he enjoys to play. When Luka gets frustrated, he loses it. And Tom, you're number one fan in the world that you know it. When the guy is not enjoying his style of basketball, the guy loses it. He starts getting technicals, right? He starts getting frustrated, and that's exactly what the Clippers need to try to do.
Maybe that's why they're trying to pull off with having that little child on him. That little kid. I don't know why they tried. Well, I guess that was the game plan with it, but
it didn't work out too well for them. I mean, that is fucking hilarious. The way that he was like, he's too fucking small.
That's been on repeat for the last 24 hours in my house.
Oh, I need that clip. Send that through.
I
love that. Yeah, and I think that was part of it. It was for him to be an irritant and for him to be a pest. And I think part of the problem is if you don't have Pat Beverly on him, then you kind of lose the value in having Pat Beverly altogether.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But they've got Rondo.
Absolutely.
Well, you can put him on Porzingis. That's fine.
That would probably work out better, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't have a small guard unless Brunson is going off again. Like they don't have a small guard that I'd be so concerned about, like benching Beverly.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. Then what the Clippers actually did in the game was go to a small lineup with Marcus Morris, I guess, was their center. That was when Porzingis went to the cup on the pick and roll, and then also got the dunk while they were spaced out. And clearly that then didn't work because it's an issue where Porzingis can actually protect the rim on one end, and they can still play Kleber in a small lineup. Dallas can, because he can space the floor on offense. But then on the other end, the Clippers can't defend those bigger guys. So their small ball lineup doesn't seem to be able to compete with the Dallas small ball lineup. And that is just going to be an issue if things continue this way, because while Zubac and Ibaka were out there, Doncic was just exploiting those matchups every time. Whether it's someone cutting back door on them while they're guarding a wing player, or going into them and drawing fouls, or spacing them out on the perimeter as well. They were just getting exploited, and they need to find a way of using that small lineup more effectively, because that was the only way that they could trap and then have fast enough defenders to recover out. But I'm kind of torn on the put Kawhi on him thing. He's destroyed Paul George in every regular season matchup that they've had this year. There was even one where I thought Paul George injured his leg because he broke him so hard on the crossover. And Paul George is a great defender. Like you can't get your ankles broken unless you're playing defense. So
true.
I don't know that he's the answer. And then Ty Lue has said that you're going to get what you want basically in response to putting Kawhi on Luka. I don't know that he would just come out and say that if that's what he's going to do. Ty Lue doesn't, like, with his secret defenses in Cleveland. I don't know if I think he might be bluffing.
It might not be like a straight up sort of thing. Like,
yeah,
be like,
maybe it's for a few minutes to start the game or something, and then he'll change up. But you can't give, Zach Loeb says this all the time, you can't give Luka the same look over and over again. He'll just learn to exploit it. So maybe they'll do some of that. Maybe they should throw in some zone and just other weird stuff just to mess with him.
I'd like to see it though. Like I would just like to see that one matchup for a while, for like a little extended period, because it will be
play it one-on-one.
Very interesting. No, I don't think they will.
Just call for a pick.
It'd just be nice. Just be nice to see.
Yeah, because that's my whole thing. He won't just play it straight up, and we'll talk about other matchups later. You can get whatever matchup you want on the court if you are willing to take the time to run people off screens and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if they should experiment with some pre-switching or jump switching, I think they call it, where you find out who is being put into the pick and roll and you switch that matchup early with someone with a more favorable defender. Yeah, and then offensively, I think they should go at him. Go at Luka.
Absolutely.
There's no reason why Kawhi shouldn't. Well, Kawhi would get tired guarding Luka for a whole game, right? So why wouldn't they do the same thing to Luka? Make him defend these great ISO players, these great ISO scorers that we've just mentioned.
And go up Porzingis as well, because he's a weakling defensively as well, so you might as well.
There was a regular season game, to be fair, but the Warriors had a game where they just gave it to Wiggins or who's the other guy that they have on the perimeter? That guy that missed all the shots to start the year.
Draymond?
No. Then Kelly Oubre. They would give the ball to either Kelly Oubre or Wiggins, isolated on the wing with Porzingis, and just drove around him over and over and over again. Because he doesn't have the lateral quickness. There's no reason why Paul George and Kawhi can't do the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing that I would do on offense for them is I feel like they share it about a little bit too much. Like, if Kawhi is the best option, go to him 5 times in a row. Like, if they've got a way that they can exploit Kawhi versus Porzingis, or they're trying to sort of tire out Luka, like, just go to that. Like, just, it's the playoffs. You only get a limited number of games. Like, don't feel like you have to, Paul George, you get 5 shots now, or you get 1 shot, then Kawhi gets 1 shot. Then, like, just
I'm super interested in the how the Clippers are going to bounce back in game 2, because of mentally to see if the Mavs got into their heads or not, because if we can. I don't think the highlights would be enough. I think you just have to watch the game, but because it could be a two-way turnaround for the Clippers. They might go, hey, shit, they got into our heads now. We, and everything just implodes, or it was actually something they needed. Like, get that L out of the way, play weirdly game 1, and then just from there it only gets better, and then they just absolutely destroy the Mavs. It will be interesting to see what game 2's reaction is going to be. That's what I'm.
Yeah, mentally, right? Because they have to come out aggressive and they have to put a stamp on it, because their issue is this was a home game. Yeah, and I feel like we've almost forgotten what it was like to have playoff home games and the significance of a home game, and like winning a home game means a lot less than winning an away game. So when you lose one like they have, it's now really important for them to win game 2, because if Dallas go home with a 2-0 lead, like, the series could be over potentially.
To be honest with you, them Clippers losing that first one has me extremely worried.
Yeah.
like for the Clippers, because we saw what happened with them last year.
Yeah.
Like it's I thought it was more of they were in the bubble. Paul George talked about like how difficult they found it. I think there was some issues with sort of personnel with Lou Will and Trez sort of leaving. So I thought that they'd maybe exercise those demons, if you will, and they would come out really strong. So that first game out, it's got me a bit worried.
Yeah. And then also
they need to win this next game.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
The other concern I have were two little tidbits that came out of the press conferences. I think Ty Lue was talking about how Paul George and Kawhi are still dealing with their foot injuries. They both have foot injuries that have made them miss games, and he was insinuating that they're not 100%. So then, with that in mind, and considering what you were saying, Mike, about just going to them over and over again, I wonder if there's a physical reason why that's not happening, and why the ball's being spread a bit more. And it's a bit more your turn, my turn kind of thing. And then also with them not getting to the rim as much as well. Maybe that's part of the issue. And then with the Kawhi guarding Lucas stuff, they were talking about it on a podcast where they said that one of the beat reporters spoke to Nick Nurse about asked Nick Nurse one thing that he learned about Kawhi and coaching him in the playoffs compared to coaching him in the regular season. And in the playoffs, apparently, Kawhi told him that in the fourth quarter, he has 5 good minutes. This was when he was in Toronto, mind. But he has 5 good minutes in the fourth quarter. So rest him and then put him in for the last 5, and he'll give you everything he's got. And I was like, fourth quarter's 12 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Not good enough.
So imagine Dame Lillard saying that. I'm just defining this for me this quarter. The fourth quarter, man.
Yeah. Now that might have been because of the thigh injury that he was nursing the whole season. But I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't know if he's like physically able to play like 40 minutes a game like some of these other guys are. Right? We just saw the top 3 in the Bucks play 40 plus minutes in an overtime game. I don't know if he can push it out that far. So it will be interesting to see physically how like if they do put him on Luka, for example, how they manage the rest of the game physically. How many minutes does he end up playing and stuff like that.
I mean, fair play for him to be able to recognize that. But yeah, it's I'd be concerned if that was my best player.
They won a championship doing it, right? They won a championship doing it, but it's just food for thought, right?
And it was 2 years ago too, so that injury can be 2 years worse, right? So
or 2 years better. Yeah.
So it is concerning if your best player is in that mindset. And I never thought of Kawhi of a guy that would say those kind of things, you know. He doesn't look like that guy, right? But then again, we don't know much about him anyway. So maybe he's like this all the time, and he's always been like this.
But at times you could see it. During the finals that he was fatigued, that he couldn't, like, he would play really well in these spurts. Like there'd be a 1 minute spurt where he'd like hit 3 shots and make a defensive play, and then he'd go kind of quiet again. You could see it if you go back and watch those games, if you have access. It's really interesting to see. But they won a championship, so it worked. All right. So with that, we go to the Denver Nuggets versus the Portland Trailblazers. One of the few games that has had two games played at the time of recording. There'll be more games played by the time you hear this. But first game was a Blazers blowout. And the second game, something of a Denver blowout.
Yeah.
First game, the Blazers seemed to get whatever they wanted out of pick and roll and ball movement and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. Campazzo guarding Dame. He was very good at guarding him in the face up, but then
1-on-1, but
Dame would
if you
send
do pick and roll.
Yeah. Dame sent picks at him and he was dying on the picks. Even posted him up a couple of times, which he does not normally do. And then they were able to exploit Michael Porter Jr. defensively and score a bunch of buckets, man. They were getting any three they wanted. Second game, Denver came out and punched them in the mouth. Went up double digits early in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Dame got them back into it in the second quarter. And then in the second half, they were able to step on their necks by attacking the rim a lot. We all thought this series was going to be close.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be this close, to be honest. I was being a super optimistic Homer guy and thinking that Campazzo could defend Dame, and obviously he can't. Just for short periods of time, you know. Dame has just so many resources in attack. I read the column on a newspaper on one of Argentina's most famous coaches, Oscar Sanchez, and he was saying, you know, like what Denver needs to do, you know, all the errors offensively and everything, defensively, sorry, but you know, he loves Campazzo. He watched him grow in Argentina. He said he can't guard Dame Lillard or McCollum. He's good at intensity, you know, but he can't guard these guys. So it needs to be a team effort to guard these guys. And then when I was analyzing the pick and rolls, you know, and we were talking before we started recording, it's just how do you defend the pick and roll with Lillard, right? So you ideally you prefer that this guy drives rather than shoot the three. But in order for him to drive, you kind of like need to challenge him first and, you know, get him a little bit tired. If you give him half a second, the guy's going to shoot it and he's going to score. He scored how many 3-pointers from the logo yesterday? Like, the guy is just amazing, unbelievable. And another adjustment that Malone did yesterday was put Gordon on some possessions on Dame, which just threw him off guard, right? So he was, okay, what do I do now? You know, less available things. Like it's just, you can't shoot properly with a guy that is that much taller than you. Unless you go all the way back to your own court, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does eventually, you know. But yeah, I think and obviously you just mentioned it, and we said it as well before we recorded that Millsap, Austin Rivers, Michael Porter Jr. they were all attacking the basket, going down, you know, and driving that, and that helped. And Jokic, I mean, of course, Jokic. Both games, he was Jokic.
Yeah. But the one thing that Jokic hasn't been able to do is have those high assist numbers. In game one, he only had 1 assist. And in game 2, he only had 5.
Correct.
So there is something in the way that they're playing him. They're basically saying, be a scorer, and we'll let you beat us. And in game 1, he wasn't able to. In game 2, he was.
I think that's part of that. That's because Murray is not there either. You know, like they had to adjust. Obviously, Michael Porter Jr. had to take a role of a higher scorer, and sometimes he doesn't deliver. Like game 1, right? When he delivers, fantastic. You know, you're gonna get Jokic with 5 assists. But when he doesn't deliver, Jokic has to score.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say collectively, I think the Nuggets. I think the second game they had 29 assists and Blazers 15. So I think they compensate with Jokic not having that many assists by collectively having, you know, 30 for one game collectively as a team. It's a good number.
Right.
I think to me what was really good is I thought they, again as a unit they were really good. I think they had 6 players over 12 points on the Nuggets. I think that was about 108 points out of 128, something like over 100 points out of from 6 guys. But then Jokic had those ridiculous shots as well. Like, so some of them I was like, how'd that go in? Like,
exactly.
It felt like his legs were,
like
everything. So
it's like, well, the same things we think of Steph is less flashy, right? because Steph's is like, ooh, all these dribbles. Jokic is this slow motion guy, one leg up, jumper, right? And you're like,
Just
how
exploit
did
the
he
space.
do that?
Mm.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't want to do that, but I can't believe he's doing it. And it's not luck because he's doing it every single game.
Mm. Yeah, he shot 75% in this game, 15 for 20, 50% from free.
It's ridiculous.
And yeah, it's not like he's not being guarded. These aren't open shots. Like Nurkic is right there and he's just hitting.
All of them were
on him.
contested. A lot of them were
absolutely.
Yeah, and it just looks like he's gonna be this guy for a little while at least. So does anyone think that they should change tactic and just decide to try and let the supporting cast do more? I mean, they did that a little bit in game 2. And Jokic still had 38. Do you think it's better to
which supporting cast?
So sorry.
You mean Portland focusing more on defending Jokic?
Yeah, like it seems like they're not going to double him. They're just going to play him straight up and sort of let him eat one-on-one, but then keep his assists low and make sure that he doesn't make everyone else go off. Everyone was able to get off anyway. But do you think they should stick to that tactic, or do you think they should start doubling him and put a bigger emphasis on the supporting cast scoring?
I stick to it. I think it's a really good good tactic for him and Denver, because if you double in, he's got multiple options. There can be sort of one person that's not hitting. If you're turning him into the scorer, I don't think that's his natural sort of role. So he had a great scoring game in the last game, but can he do that for the whole series? I go back to it for the next game, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that he is going to score. Actually, I actually think that he will score 35 plus on each game. But that being said, and even though this season he had to do it for his team to succeed, again because of the absence of Murray, just allow him to do that. Keep his assist low. This is not his nature. He had to do this season. But he's not a top scorer. We knew Jokic when he came to the NBA. Everybody was talking about his passing abilities. We never mentioned his scoring, right? I think only the end of last season, maybe, but this season was like his explosion as a scorer. So let him score. Let him score. Stop everybody else.
Okay.
He's too good at passing, and because he's so tall, he can see over a lot of like the people that are going to come for the double team.
He's quite big.
So it's like, it's asking for trouble, I think.
Tom?
Yeah, in terms of what you do to turn it around, I don't know. Because I think eventually the Nuggets will take this series because they're a bit deeper in terms of roster. The Blazers are over relying on really 2 players and a half, with
what they've been doing for the past what?
And Melo,
3 years.
But they always sort of eventually run out of gas. Even if they go past the first round, then the second round they sort of implode because they start picking up injuries. I don't know if they'll come a little bit earlier in this series, but with having everything resting on those 2 guys, I don't know. I think they should let Jokic score and try to cut him off from the rest of the team. If that's something you have to do, maybe that'll work. I don't know.
He's averaging 36 points on about 62% shooting, so it's working. He's scoring.
It's really pick your poison, really. It's like what do you want to do?
But I don't think it's going to be that effective to win the game to double team him. Like,
I
why
totally get where you're coming
MVP.
from.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with that guy?
Yeah.
I don't know if Nurkic is as good as he has been in the past, though. That's a bit of a concern.
No, he's not
just reliable, but he's not amazing, right?
Yeah,
it's not the same level, no.
Yeah, and they've been going at him defensively. Some of the little guys, Austin Rivers drove on him, MPJ drove by him, and it seemed like they were making a point of exposing him and then going past him, and that was allowing Jokic to sort of almost rest on offense, which he doesn't normally get to do. There were certain possessions where he didn't even need to. He might have been setting the pick or whatever, but he didn't need to handle the ball and make the decisions on the ball that he normally would, because they were able to exploit that matchup in the pick and roll. So yeah, they looked good. They looked good. I did say that I didn't expect there to be much defense in this series. That was another high scoring game on both sides, and and that was with Lillard being the only real threat on the Blazers last night. The Nuggets just found a way to outscore them, and that was the important part. They managed to stay home on shooters and then find a way to outscore them. And I think it's just going to be that sort of back and forth of who can find a way to score more buckets. I think it will continue to be close. I do have a little bit more hope for Denver now that I've seen them actually contain the shooters a little bit. But with that said, the Blazers shot exactly the same, if not a better percentage from three in the second game. It's just that the Denver offense was able to go off. And they forced more turnovers. That was the big difference.
Also,
yeah, they doubled up their turnovers from the first game and then some. So yeah, that was good. Next on the list, I have Phoenix Lakers. Lakers.
So that's why is that why you were dragging your feet? That's what Dave was dragging his feet to move from that Blazers nug.
Yeah, don't cry, Dave.
We just spent half an hour on that game.
If you're not watching, if you're not watching this, if you're listening to us, Dave is crying.
There's a tear right there.
We're good, baby. I picked my Lakers in 6. And don't forget,
it's because you didn't have confidence in them that they lost.
Phoenix are the top seed. They're playing in Phoenix. Game 1 and 2 are in Phoenix. So it's not like we're the Clippers and we lost a home game. You see?
Comparing himself to
it has more meaning. A wise man once said.
You're the twin.
Yeah, it's fine. You just have to take care of home and win one on the road. Win one on the road. That's it. Yeah. You only have to win one on the road.
It's coming home, Nate. It's coming home.
We believe team. We believe Lakers.
Exactly. We believe Lakers.
Right? Go on.
With LeBron and AD.
Plucky underdogs. Plucky underdogs.
The Lakers have never been the underdogs ever.
Yeah.
Even when they were bad, they were not the underdogs.
Even when they didn't make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, they were not the underdogs.
That's what happens when you're the Kings of LA, man. What can I say? So the Lakers lost, in case you didn't notice. From what was that?
What? I thought they won.
Phoenix up 1-0 despite an injury to Chris Paul, who seemed to injure his shoulder in was it the first or the second quarter?
Yeah, he came back.
He missed some time, came back, and one interesting byproduct of that, besides him not being able to dribble with his right arm, which was weird, was Devin Booker ended up playing 45 minutes. Amazing game, though, 34 points, 8 assists. The Lakers did double, and they doubled a lot. And at first, they forced some turnovers out of Booker, and then he started to get used to it. And he was able to carve them up a little bit with Bridges making decisions, Crowder making decisions in the 4-on-3. And Ayton playing an excellent game, double-double, 20 and 10 plus. Amazing defensively as well. He was really, really good. Excellent on the offensive boards, excellent on the defensive boards. The Lakers went big and still lost the rebounding battle. With 2 bigs in the lineup.
Isn't that Drummond's like like only skill.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. He's volume-wise, he gets a lot of rebounds, right?
Right.
But he actually is really good on the offensive boards and not very good on the defensive boards. Like his teams consistently rebound worse with him on the defensive boards. So when he's off the floor,
That's what you want out of your
they
big man.
rebound better. Well, I wonder if he's one of those players that's like, hey, you see a rebound, it's mine. So people are just like, okay, we'll let him get it. Then he doesn't get it. Yeah, right. You couldn't tell. That was the my Westbrook face. Yeah. So the Phoenix Suns went on to win the game. It was quite a low scoring affair, quite a slow game, as most of the games were. What will my Lakers do, guys? Help us out. We need advice.
Here's my first one. You should really, you're talking about getting guys on the Celtics. I think you should ask for a swap AD for DA, because DeAndre Ayton was, dominating AD, and I just thought, like, what's up with Anthony Davis, man? It was so weird. He was so weak. That's one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Oh God, I don't know if it was the defense that was bothering him, or it's just him coming back and he's not completely feeling it. I don't know. It's really odd, really, really odd. Like, what was the stat? Like, it's something horrible, like 13 points and seven rebounds. It's like, I think 5 for 15 or 5 for 16 shooting. It was just like everything he was trying was just not going in, and he looked like he was lost almost on the court. There's a bunch of a moment like he fake shot and then suddenly started dribbling back to the 3.9. I'm like, what are you doing? why are you stepping back all the way? So it was really odd the way he behaved. And then the second one was LeBron, who also looked a bit tired or out of it. So, like, it was also one of the first time that I saw him on the court, and I was like, he's not really being that influential on anything.
It was like he was the same thing.
Another player on the court, which is really weird to say about LeBron James, because usually when he comes in, it's like, well, the attention is automatically all on him, and like every other player is sort of a service to him, and it wasn't the case then. It was just very withdrawn, I felt. But yeah, then they got bust by Ayton, I think. I found, like, for the first time ever, like, since he got picked number 1, that was like, he impressed me for the first time. Like, I was like, wow, that's it. Like, that maybe that was his welcome to the NBA moment to him. Breakout game, exactly.
I still think that he has so much to improve. Like, he got the numbers, he was efficient, but I see DeAndre Ayton as a big man. You know what I mean? Like a 90s big man that could have been really good in the 90s, right? Like a Patrick Ewing, David Robinson style of player.
I compare him to Robinson.
These guys, right? But if you see David Robinson's style of play, even on his first years in the NBA, he wouldn't, if he get a pass up here, he wouldn't bring the ball down, like stuff like that. DeAndre Ayton still makes those kind of mistakes when you're like, just go with strength and just freaking dunk the ball, right? He's like, kind of like, he's efficient, of course, he played well, but I just think that this guy could be super dominant if he wanted to. It's just a game that is not benefiting big men, but he could benefit from that same thing. The irony is in there. But yeah, I agree with Tom, actually. LeBron and AD were kind of expecting each other to save the game and save the Lakers, and none of them did.
I think part of the problem with AD was Drummond, right? He was there, and when you
He's just there.
Where he should have been. Like,
he was there.
Move that cone.
Yeah, like, and it's funny. I can't remember who mentioned it. Someone said that it might have been Drummond himself, actually said that AD scored 42 against the Suns when the Lakers beat them towards the end of the regular season, and Drummond was there then as well. But the difference was LeBron wasn't and Schroeder wasn't. And I think this issue that the Lakers have is a funny one because shooters, he can make threes, but he's not like a 3-point shooter. He's not someone where the defense is going to like stick to him like glue. And then KCP is that person, right? Like 39-40% for his career. LeBron isn't that person either, right? He can make threes, but you're not going to like stick to him like glue. You can sag off a little bit and then close out. And then you have Drummond in the paint. So when AD gets the ball, he can just see a lot of bodies and a lot of bodies that don't mind being in the way. And he's also not a brute force big man. So he's not just gonna, I'm just gonna barrel in there and bounce around and get fouls that way. He's a skill player. And he sees all those bodies and he goes, I'll take a jab step and shoot my mid-range. Exactly. And in this game, his mid-range wasn't falling. So it just looked like he was just like passive DeRozan out there. And that is not what you expect from your max player. It's not what you expect from your superstar. And that's not the guy that the Lakers had in the playoffs last year, right? And I do think that it's a shame that Drummond has become the scapegoat, but I do think that getting Drummond out of there is the solution, because that out of those players that I just named in the starting lineup, he's the most replaceable. You have a ready-made replacement in Gasol on the bench, someone who can space the floor, who also brings something positionally on defense, and though he's not as great of a rebounder on either end as Drummond is, he is a good box out defender
and a good passer too. So
and a good passer.
Just get AD and LeBron to gain some sort of advantage over their defenders, and Gasol is going to give them the ball where they need it.
Exactly, and then you can use Drummond in those lineups with a Schroeder or with a LeBron, where they can run pick and rolls with him and get the best out of him on alley-oops and things like that. On my screen, Mike's face just froze, like with a funny face. That was jokes. They can then get him in positions where he can actually take advantage of having more space. Because the other thing is, with AD out there, he's also not getting the same kind of looks that he would get in a 5-out offense. And the Lakers have other players that they can bring in as shooters to space the floor, like a Wes Matthews. Yeah, I think that's what Vogel needs to do with the rotations, right? When he has a Trez in or a Drummond in, then it needs to be in a lineup where there is 2 or 3 other shooters on the perimeter, like capital S shooters. That's the change I would make. And then we're going to see, I mean, there was a lot of feel-out talk, that being a feel-out game for him and et cetera. But if AD doesn't play like AD, it doesn't matter whether LeBron isn't having a feel-out game anymore. The Lakers are going to need more to win the game. So yeah, that's what I would do.
I'm interested in going into game two in looking at the body language and the attitude of the Lakers players, because you can tell a lot about the way the intensity, like how much intensity the team has put into the game, just by looking at the stats in rebounds. And in rebounds, 47-33 for the Suns. So usually the team that it's got
with 2 bigs on the floor.
With 2 bigs on the floor, exactly. But it's that the team that usually wants it more grabs more rebounds. That's a very basic way of measuring. That's sort of something I always look at on the stat sheet. Is that like looking at rebounds? Usually you can see what sort of spirit they were in that on the night. So because the shooting stats are fairly similar, so it wasn't anything to do with like having a bad shooting night, because the other team was having the similar shooting night as you. So something's got to give, and I think that's where the difference was made. Second chances, but I want to see in game 2 if there's a turnaround in sort of how the Lakers are attacking the game. maybe we're looking at LeBron James is finally seeing his age catching up. It's possible so that we see that, but again, it's LeBron, so what do we know? Nothing is normal with him.
Come back.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's not this sort of series, it's sort of the first time that we've even seen him be human, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll see if he continues to be human or if he has more super soldier serum back there somewhere. We move to another superhero. Ice Trae hit the game winner in game 1
yes,
of Hawks Knicks. We can make it a quick one like the series is going to be. Trae Young takes Frank Ntilikina to the cleaners. I found that actually there was meant to be a screen on that last play. He didn't just go, "Oh no, I don't need a screen. I'm just going to take this bum off the dribble." there was meant to be a screen. Collins was meant to come up and set one, but he was fouled by someone off the ball and his shoe came off, so the screen never came.
And I think that's why, because I think Frank also was expecting a screen.
And that's why he turned to his left. Yeah.
Right.
And then Trae Young went tween, and crossed him over and went to the rim and hit the game-winning floater. And then told
Spike Lee
told them to shush with his finger really high on his nose for some reason.
Shush.
I feel it for Spike Lee, man. How much has he spent on front row tickets, huh?
No.
I want to know how much money he spent on games that were wins versus losses.
It's like an 80-20 ratio, like definitely.
Well, in the 90s, you could have been good. And I think since then it's just
when you used to win.
Yeah.
That is 30 years ago now, Tom. You realize that?
He did say that he spent over $3 million on tickets.
Yeah.
Of course, that
On
tickets.
losing tickets.
I'm watching Reggie Miller take his team to the cleaners.
Yeah.
And Mike. So keeping it current, the Hawks were able to use their double drag screen to great effect. The Knicks looked like they wanted Trae Young to shoot floaters, which he did. He went 8 for 10 on floaters, including the game winner. On the other side of things, Burks gave the Knicks good minutes. I think he scored 27 or something like that.
Yeah.
Julius Randle wasn't very good. I think he was 6 for 23 from the field, something to that effect.
He's been having a slump for the last couple of weeks where he's not been all that good. And that's why, which is also a cool thing to witness, because we still managed to win a bunch of games with him being average. But,
and this was a close game with him being pretty bad.
Exactly. That's the hope there. That's the hope there that if he can turn it around and actually switch it on, then it's possible. But
yeah, and most of my scouting report, most of my advice would be just exploit Trae Young on defense. We know he's one of the worst defenders in the league. Get Randall going at him. They did a post up with RJ Barrett. He scored easily over him. Burks did the same thing late on. Just do it. Do it for the whole game. Just go at him. Just exploit him.
It's the same advice.
What you're supposed to do, right? Play him off the court.
It's the same advice with Doncic, right? If you know it's going to be a nuisance and you know he's defensively not as gifted as he is offensively, just go at him and try and draw some fouls and get him off the court. I don't know. It's
much easier to do against Trae as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. My problem with what happened there is the good thing was the vibe, and like you said, Dave, when you watched the game, the whole place was rocking. That actually felt weird. I was like, oh my god, so loud. Yeah, such a weird thing to see again. But I think this is that game. This is where you see the limits of Tibbs' system when he's over relying on some guys, and then he keeps doing the same BS move of putting Frank for the last play. He's been playing 10 seconds there, 30 seconds there, and I'm not a Frank fan at all. I don't think he's all that good, but you're not really making any sense by putting him on for the last play after not having played a single second before that. Like, it doesn't make sense to do that.
Insane. Like, it's, you look at the box score and you see like, oh, he's played like 30 seconds or something, and then you find out that those 30 seconds are like the final
basket.
You're like, what? How can you do that to a guy, man?
It's like play him in the first or second quarter, like give him 5-10 minutes, and then like, you know, get him a feel for the game, and then fine, if you want to bring him on for the last play, that's absolutely fine, because that's what he's meant to be good at, is being somebody that's and in previous Knicks Hawks games, they think he was effective against Trae Young. He actually did manage to somehow slow him down to a certain extent, but to do that against you, like the guy who you think is your best, I don't know, maybe that's what you think, your best defensive point guard, like the way he was brought onto the court, it's like, it's a bit of it's a disservice to him as a player, but then B, it doesn't really make sense into, like, the guy's not even warmed up. it's like your first play, go and do that. Like, come on,
stop him.
So that to me, yeah.
Is Elfrid Payton giving you that much on offense that you're like, no, we need to keep him in? Like,
or if Vildosa is coming.
But exactly, and that's the thing. That's the thing, is like, to me, there's an order in the point guards. In the, you know, it's like you've got Quickly, you've got Burks, who are good, and Rose is actually very decent. Like, he's giving you, like, he's actually really good.
Yeah.
But like, between if you tell me after that to pick between Frank and Payton, I'm like, I go with Frank. Like, if you need to give somebody 5-10 minutes, you know, as much as I don't think, again, that Frank is the greatest player of all time, like, he's okay with bringing the ball up. He's a good defender. Like, you know, what's Payton doing? Like, Payton is a lost cause at that point. It's like, it's like, why do you have that guy there? It's like, many people have lost hope with Payton. It's like, and the fact that he's getting more minutes than, I don't know. That was depressing. But again, it was the one thing I'll stick with, that it was a great playoff games. There was a lot of intensity. The crowd was absolutely mental, and that was great to see. You know, they didn't have to do a 50% off tickets. You know what I'm saying? Hey, let's go a bit. You guys.
Trey was unstoppable, man. But again, like, the Hawks depend on him so much, don't they? Would the Hawks have won if Trae didn't score as much? Excuse me. Do they have another offensive
well, Bogdanovic.
gun?
Yeah, Bogdanovic came in and was really good. He's hit some really, really important threes. And he's been a big part of their uptick since Nate McMillan came in. And he hit, especially that last three that he hit with where Trae drove the ball. He managed to get all the way to the cup, went underneath and threw a left-handed wraparound pass to Bogdanovic. And Bogdanovic just wasn't open. He just wasn't. The pass wasn't there. He threw it anyway. They got a hand on it, and then he managed to get the ball back and fire in the three to tie the game, I think it was at that point. And then, that sort of set the stage for what was to come with Trae, hitting the game winner. And he really stepped up for them. Gallinari didn't, right? Bogdanovic was 4 for 9 from 3, 7 of 15 overall from the field for 18 points. Whereas Gallinari was, 1 for 7 from 3. And that is a massive, like, kick in the teeth, because he's not going to be out there playing any types of good defense. So if he's not going to be hitting his shots or scoring in any way, he's more than just a 3-point shooter. If he's not going to be scoring, then that's a massive negative for them. So that's somewhere that they can still improve despite the win. The other interesting thing was that Collins and Capella, 12 points and 9 points respectively, it was clear that the Knicks were like, we're not going to let you get many lobs. I think they had maybe 2 in the first quarter and not any after that. But what that meant was when Trae was driving the lane, he wasn't taking floaters from like the free throw line. He was taking floaters at the rim. There was no one in front of him because they were staying home on the lob threats and staying home on the shooters. So again, it's one of those pick your poison situations. That play is really difficult to defend if you can't get around the screens. And it will be interesting to see how the Knicks continue to approach this going forwards. With all of this said, it was a 2-point game. So it could have easily gone the other way. Like one bucket here, one turnover there, it could have easily gone the other way. So I wouldn't massively overreact if I was the Knicks.
No, they shouldn't. That's been the trend of the entire season. That's literally the trademark of the Knicks this season. Like when they lose by a couple, and then when they win, they win. So it's always very much on the edge of going either way. So it's all right.
All right. Last matchup, Bucks Heat. We've had 2 of these.
Yes.
The Bucks have won them both. They won in overtime in the first game, and then they blew Miami the fuck out. With a 34-point win.
Ridiculous.
Before heading back to Miami.
Could have been 50.
For game 3.
Easily.
Good Lord.
78 in the first half.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Scorching.
And the Bucks are the best offense, right?
Yeah.
It's either them or the Clippers have the best offense in the
Bucks,
league.
Yeah.
It might well be, yeah. And that's with, right? They shot 41% on threes, but it seemed like they were shot 100% in the first half, right?
Yeah, because they made 22, I think, overall in the entire game. So
22 for 53. But that was with Giannis going 1 for 7, Holiday going 1 for 4,
Right.
Vincenzo going 1 for 6, right? So it seemed like everyone else was just absolutely raining.
Yeah, I discovered that guy Forbes, Bryn Forbes. Oh my god!
Come on,
dude.
Yeah,
used to be a spur.
I think the Bucks discovered him too.
Yeah,
Popovich discovered him actually.
Yeah, we
good.
know Bryn Forbes. He was a scouts pick back in the day when we used to do those. He would have these scorching games from the field. Scored 23 points on all threes. But yeah, they really came in, kicked them in the teeth. And Miami were the opposite. They could not score. They didn't have anyone crack 20 points. Deadman led the team with 19. Who saw that coming? Jinx, private Jinx, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you can't talk for the next 3 days, Mike.
That's great while we're doing the podcast. It's ideal.
Yeah, they only had 3 starters in double digits. Butler with 10.
It's bad, man.
Adebayo with 16 and Robinson with 10. They just didn't have it. They got contained defensively this time. In the first game, the only thing that was going for them was their 3-point shooting. They shot 40%.
Duncan Robinson.
And Robinson went off. In this game, Butler got locked down again. And this time Robinson wasn't there to save them.
There you go.
And again, in game 2, rebounds. 61 to 36.
Massive difference, man.
61-36. Like, wait, you can't win that.
Impossible to win a game like that.
How many offensive? 21 offensive rebounds. Yikes.
Which would make sense if you take 53 threes, and they'll bounce back long, so you get more chances for an offensive rebound. So
yeah, that's tough. That is tough. So yeah, I personally I think this one is over. I know we need to go to Miami and see what the Heat do at home, but maybe it won't be a sweep. As far as advice, with Giannis guarding Jimmy Butler, I would run him off screens. I'd make him do the whole get around screens thing because bigs aren't good at getting around screens, and as much as we think of Giannis as being maybe a 4, he used to play the 3, and he runs a lot of point. He's a big man, and getting around those screens is going to be really tough for someone with limbs that long.
He'll run through them. That's what he does. He'll run through stuff.
Exactly.
Over them.
Or over, you know.
He'll climb over them like Undertaker climbs over the ropes. Yeah, run him off screens. There's no way he's able to like slink and get around them like a slim guard would. And then you can use that to exploit other matchups. Go at Pat Connaughton, go at DiVincenzo, go at Bryn Forbes. Like, we weren't sure Bryn Forbes would be able to play in the playoffs, and here he is just splashing threes. Go at the guy.
Outscoring all Heat players.
Yeah, he's not a good defender, to say the least. So yeah, just go at him. Go at exploit those players. Make Brook Lopez guard in space, or guard Robinson on handoffs. I feel like they haven't really gone to their Bam Adebayo handoff game at all yet in this series. And then Dragic seems to have it going. He seems to be the only one that has it going.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They're starting Nunn, and Dragic is on the bench. And Nunn can light it up at times, but I don't think he has the command over an offense that somebody like Dragic and his experience does. Yeah. So I would consider switching that up. I'm not counting out the Heat. I think their tenacity and Spoelstra is a great coach as well. So I'm not. And also, I still don't believe in Giannis.
I think I think I agree and disagree with you. Like, I do agree with Coach Spoelstra and the experience that you just mentioned of Dragic. The finals experience of Bam and particularly Jimmy Buckets is going to get them a couple of games, but Giannis is just been dominating, man. Like, he's just so big, so strong. Like, I watched more of game 1 than I watched of game 2, and it's just one step and he's on the rim. 2 dribbles and coast to coast. The defensive rebounds, the defensive presence, that block that he had on Jimmy Butler was amazing. Milwaukee's, like, if Spoelstra comes up with a technique, a way of stopping him for a few minutes, Milwaukee still has Middleton. Even Brook Lopez was scoring on the first game. Bryn Forbes can score. Drew Holiday. Like, it's just too much.
Forbes is a problem, man. Forbes is. Can't get rid of him.
He has his own list. He makes a list of the richest people in the world.
Yay. Money joke.
He was funny before. He was famous before basketball.
It's just a hobby.
Just a hobby. I'm just here for lols. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay, so you think they're still in it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we shall see. Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league. Like, he's top 2 and he's not 2. So we'll see what he can do. I just wonder if they're just that bit weaker this year. Iguodala's that bit older. They're starting Trevor Ariza.
Gosh, that's something I don't understand, man.
He was just like not a factor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was a big part of how they were able to overcome them, as well as Jay Crowder getting super hot from 3. This was one of the series where he just knocked down shot after shot. And they're just not getting that same kind of potency from the perimeter. I look at their 3 points made and I see a lot of 1s and 2 2s, and the rest are 0s. So they've really cooled off. 28.6% from 3. And the first game was only close because they made so many 3s. So they're gonna have to make those outside shots. So this is gonna be a very short series.
I'm just a bit worried about Butler though, because he's been like off it for pretty because of the defense, right? Because they got Giannis on him, they got Tucker, they got Drew Holiday as well, was really good.
And they've got Lopez on the help side, right? This is kind of the reverse of what happened with the Jazz and Memphis, where they only have Gobert down there. So when someone drives in, you've got a 2-on-1 with with Valanciunas just chilling in the dunker spot, and then the driver on the other side, and you have to pick your poison. Whereas when Jimmy Butler runs in there, it's him against Lopez and Giannis, and they're both like way bigger than him. So he's running into a problem where he's been reliant on drawing fouls and bullying people inside. Like the last 2 years, he's barely shot threes since he left Philly. And now it's like, oh, you mean I can't do the stuff that I've always done? I am stuck. And I don't think he's shot over 30% in either game.
No, because he's 8 for 32 over 2 games. So
yeah,
total of 27 points. That was like for stats over 2 games. Not really. It's not much. I mean, the thing is, Butler is always. It's funny enough. Like you're always picturing him somebody that scores like 25, but it's not. Like usually doesn't average like over 20.
He's just clutch. He's clutch. He can be clutch, and he's a leader. You know, which is very meaningful. But the fact that he only scored,
27 over 2 games,
27 in 2 games. That's you need more from him on the playoffs.
Yeah. And he normally draws a lot of fouls, and he's not been able to do that. So he's been real limited on offense. And I actually think that is credit to the Bucks, right? That's an adjustment in itself. Putting Giannis on him was an adjustment from game 1. And Mike Budd has been criticized for not making adjustments. So credit to him and his staff on making that change. Hey, if it gets Giannis out of the first round, it gets Giannis out the first round. All right. So I think that'll do it for this episode. We've run kind of long, but hey, that's what happens when you're digging into the deep analysis. In the playoffs, it's what we love to do. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit like on the video, click the bell, ding ding. If you're listening on audio platforms, please give us 5 stars. If you don't want to give us 5 stars, keep your review to yourself. Give us any advice you want over social media at Grit and Grime Pod. Feel free to send us a DM or shoot us a post or a comment. I've been your host, David Sagoe. So from me, from Thomas Arnal.
Hey, one more thing. Keep an eye on our social media on Saturday because there's some real basketball happening. And some of it will end up on Instagram.
Oh my god.
Some rusty footage.
Oh my god.
Spoiler alert, I'm not playing. So.
Slow. It's gonna be slower than Kyle Anderson's fast break.
Yeah.
Did you just see it? Please.
Yeah.
Please watch. Yeah, it's fine.
And we've got the brackets challenge as well, guys.
Brackets challenge is up and out. Get involved. I think you can still sign up as long as you do so before Thursday. I can't remember what time. So get involved ASAP. Yes, the link is on our Twitter feed. I can put it in the description of this episode too. So from Jose Garcia Vidal.
Bye guys. Have fun. Make friends. Be safe. Make good decisions.
Wear a mask.
And from Michael Downey.
Good night.
We're out of here.
Bye.